Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming today. I'd like to reconvene the 16th session of the Hawaii County Council Committee on Planning. Today is October 1st. It is 10:07. We're here at the Council Chambers in Hilo. Please turn cell phones, pagers, and other mobile communication devices on silent mode. I'd like to start by reintroducing the members of the committee present today. And let the record note that Councilmember Onishi is excused today. To my far left, we have Ms. Willie, Ms. Poindexter, Ms. Ford, Mr. Yoshimoto, Ms. Ia, Mr. Kanuha. To my right, Mr. Ilagan will be here in a few minutes, and myself, Zendo Curran, Chair of the Planning Committee.
Mr. Chairman, are you planning to have a little discussion why we're in recess and why we're not going to be taking public testimony?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. So just as a reminder, statements from the public portion of the committee was concluded in the prior meeting that we had on September 17th. This meeting was just recessed, which basically there's a difference when it's postponed. It basically restarts the process again. This committee was recessed, so we're basically starting off where we had left off. We left off during discussions of Bill 119 and 120. Councilmember Eoff last had the floor. We're on the first round of discussion, and I have on my notes that it was going to be Mr. Onishi was going to be next, and Mr. Ilagan was after that. So we'll start with Mr. Ilagan, who's here. Bill 119 and 120 were read into the record and discussed simultaneously. There's Bill 119. Mr. Councilmember Kanuha made the first, and Mr. Ilagan made the second on the motion. So what we're doing is we're able to discuss both Bill 119 and 120. When we do vote, we'll be voting on 119, then we'll have to have another motion for Bill 120. Is there any clarity that my fellow council members need? Mr. Kanuha?
Can you remind us why we went into recess?
We went into recess because we ran out of time.
Okay.
There were three, and that was for the whole, so all the items on the agenda were the same items on the agenda at our previous meeting in recess. We ran out of time. We had the, it was a GMO meeting that was coming up after, and there was a lot of people here, so we just basically ran out of time and we were forced to recess. So now we're here to reconvene. Any other questions? So being that Mr. Ilagan is not here yet, we'll just get into discussion. Ms. Ford?
Thank you. I would like to call somebody who lives in the community. Tiffany, are you in? Come on up. Bring your map, please. Excuse me. Ms. Edwards, I'm just calling her because she has this nice map that she just, not your thing, the map from the, okay. And Ms. Edwards, excuse me, Ms. Edwards Hutt, please identify yourself for the record, and then I would like you to explain to the county, to the committee, what you just explained to me outside.
Aloha, Tiffany Edwards Hunt. I was sharing with Brenda Ford one of the points I wanted to make during testimony today, which I didn't realize at the time, that you do not allow testimony for recess meetings. I was sharing with her your map here that you have in your report, and I was explaining the situation for when and if we ever have roundabout construction at Highway 130 and Pahoa Village Road.
Ms. Edwards, excuse me, I keep calling you Ms. Edwards.
It's okay.
Would you tip that up so we can actually see what you're pointing to? And
okay.
Where
so
Kahakai, your mic just went off, thank you. Kahakai Boulevard Extension is going to the left of the map, and that's the shopping center in the southwest corner of the map.
Yes.
Southwest.
Right here would be the Kuahara development.
Right.
Okay. And the intersection that the stoplight is being proposed. This right here is where the proposed roundabout at Highway 130 and Pahoa Village Road would be.
Okay.
So
before you go on, the roundabout you just pointed out to, is that the one that the state said they were going to build, or are they in the process of building it?
My understanding is you know what, I cannot make an educated, I
Okay,
can't speak for the state of
just go
Hawaii. Okay, that's part of the lack of clarity in this.
She didn't.
So what I was explaining to her is when and if the construction ever happens, the proposed detour, okay? So this right here is where the fence is located, where people have to go around. They're going to take this out. People would come up Pahoa Village Road here, go to where the stoplight is, and make a left and go down Kahakai Boulevard, passing Woodland Center, where the Long's Drugs is located. My concern, and I would really urge the council members to go back and look at the Woodland Center minutes and see what Jiro Samada said on the record, their promises for what they would do. Because as a result of the Woodland Center development, they agreed to open up Kahakai onto Highway 130. Right now it's a right turn only here, okay? And just across, it goes immediately into a left turn lane to go down to Hawaiian beaches and Hawaiian shores. There's 7,000 lots in this area down here. And so what my concern is, and also some of the community members that are here, and please don't mistake that for being opposed to Bryson Kuwahara. He and I are very friendly with each other. We had a nice talk outside. This is not about being opposed to their development. It's about concurrency. What's going to happen is people will not turn right only here. They're going to jut out and they're going to try to get across into the left turn lane to go down to Hawaiian shores and Hawaiian beaches. And what you're going to have is you're going to have people coming from Kalapana side, coming and trying to get onto Kahakai, because this will be closed.
With a left turn.
Right, so they're going to make left turns onto Kahakai here. This is going to be another T-bone intersection. And there was supposed to be an exploratory roundabout put in here. Edward Sniffen was on the record at public meetings. Jiro Samada said it in your own council meetings that they were going to do that. They never did. Instead, we got $500,000 worth of restriping and deflector poles. So my concern is it's going to be a free-for-all right here while they're working on this here. So it's just going to move. The problem is just going to move. It already is a problem right now because people do not just turn right here. They don't abide by that, the traffic situation here. They try to jump out and go across to Hawaiian beaches and Hawaiian shores. So imagine when it's a detour, everyone is having to go this way. And so I was urging your council colleague to please call the Department of Transportation and have Sal Canham come in here, research in your minutes what they promised, and just find out why we don't have it and ensure that we get it as part of this development, because we cannot compound our problem. We have to solve our problems before we compound them.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions for Ms. Edwards-Hunt, but so I'll yield at this moment.
Ms. Poindexter, do you have a question for Ms. Hunt?
And I agree with not compounding the situation. But I had heard recently that the community had a meeting and that you had your state representatives who I was hoping that would be there and was invited to that. So did the state reps show up for the Puna area and
please turn your microphone on.
Yeah.
This is for the roundabout at Pahoa Village Road and Highway 130.
Yeah, you were having a meeting about that intersection.
They had a meeting about that intersection, and I was not at that meeting. But I don't believe that anything definitive came about. I believe they're still drafting the route of that roundabout. That's what they're going back and forth about.
Because this is the state, and I just hope that your representatives, especially at the state level, would be bird dogging this to push it forward. So, you know I want to support that effort. So I was just wondering, so unfortunately you weren't at that meeting.
My report back from that meeting is they're still trying to sketch out which direction the roundabout will go, because Senator Russell Rutterman has a proposed different route.
Okay, so that's being worked on, because I do support the development there. I'm concerned about the traffic. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Poindexter. Do you have a question for Ms. Hunt?
When you said they, who is they are supposed to build the roundabout? The state?
the state of Hawaii is supposed to build the
And what about
roundabout.
the other roundabout?
The Highway 130 is the State Department of Transportation. That is the continual problem.
And for, so I'm just kind of confused, there's two roundabouts, and one is more certain to be built than the other one?
I honestly am not going to try to speak for the Department of Transportation. They should be at this meeting. It's unfortunate that they're not.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Yap. Ms. Willie, do you have a question for Ms. Hunt?
Yeah, I'm just, do you mind holding that up and sort of facing my direction a little bit more? And just show me in terms of the, I understand where the intersection where they're planning to put the light, that would be between the two triangles. And, no,
right here.
That's the light. And then the two potential roundabouts are where that big X is.
Yes,
Is
and I
that
kept
the
drawing
one?
this because this is the proposed next T-bone area, but this was where they were going to do an exploratory roundabout to see if the public was going to be able to handle this bigger one that they are planning.
Okay, the bigger one up on the top is the one where it says in our,
Yes.
in the recommendation that it would require that the governor commit funds.
Yes.
It does not say build, and any funds that are just committed that do not, doesn't mean they can't get moved or, so basically the question here is, it's already congested in this area, it's already unsafe in this area, and we're planning to add another large development without having the improved infrastructure in place. And that basically is your concern, right?
That's my only concern.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Willie. Mr. Yoshimoto? Do you have a question for Ms. Hunt?
Not for Ms. Hunt.
Okay. Any other questions for Ms. Hunt? Seeing none, Ms. Ford, you have the floor back.
Is there anyone from state DOT here? Okay. Mr. Thiel. Please identify yourself.
I'm Ron Thiel, Chief of the Traffic Division for the County of Hawaii.
Mr. Thiel, I apologize, I have to ask questions. You're probably the only person who's been talking to DOT about these areas. Have you been talking to them about these areas?
Yes, I have, and I have a fairly clear understanding of what has happened over the last 4, 5, 6 years. But I keep hearing strange comments from time to time that are confusing me also, so I can understand why you people are confused.
Okay, these strange comments are coming from DOT?
No, just lots of different
generic.
people making assumptions that don't fit with what I know.
Okay, why don't you tell us?
I don't know what other people have been saying
Okay,
lately.
I understand. Give it a shot. What can you tell us about these two intersections where we have a potential exploratory roundabout and the right turn coming out from the long shopping center and the bigger roundabout, which is up on the 130. It's also on 130, but it's the upper one.
Okay, when Jiro Samada's name has been thrown out here several times, and I will say I worked with him when he was with the state and discussing a possible treatment at Kahakai Boulevard and the highway, which people have been referring to as Roundabout. He also was instrumental in getting the developer to build the right turn, right in, right out turn at that intersection. The roundabout was proposed to be looked at several years ago, and my understanding is it started and continued until the day he left, November 6th. It was December 5th, I'm not sure which year. But
Really,
anyway,
I don't care.
after that, there wasn't any discussion about a roundabout at that location that I heard of. And And then just recently, through a safety improvement project, the roundabout was identified over by Manama Market. And the safety improvement project is, funds are set up to move quite quickly. Ideally, the projects I worked on when I was in Alaska, the federal requirements try to encourage you to identify an area where there's a high action rate, get in and design it and fix it within 1 year, which is amazing. And so that's what started at this intersection.
And-
It threw everybody, Malama Market intersection.
Okay.
It threw everybody off guard because they couldn't see how a project could move so quickly. And it can, and it's still moving very, very quickly.
Okay, when you talk about the Malama Market intersection, are you talking about this intersection or one higher up here?
The first one you mentioned.
The first one, this one. Over here. Margaret? Here, okay. Go ahead, Ron. Mr. Deal.
I think I said everything I know, but
Okay, I'm gonna yield.
did I not answer all your questions?
You have given me information, but I don't know if the rest of the council is comfortable yet, so I yield.
Thank you, Ms. Ford. Just so the council knows, we did try to contact Sal Hannon with the state DOT. He was off island, so he wasn't able to make it today. Ms. Egoff?
Thank you. Mr. Thiel, then when you refer to the roundabout by Malama Market, is that the one that is mentioned in condition N?
I believe yes. It's the one that's being proposed now.
And part of the condition is that the funding shall be released by the state.
Yes, that's the one.
That's the intersection you're referring to. And so the other roundabout, the exploratory one, that isn't going to be built?
Well, I don't understand the word exploratory.
Yeah, I don't either, but-
I just know that it was proposed at one time and it has been dropped. And the attention of the state has been moved over to this other roundabout.
And that intersection, for the other proposed maybe roundabout, there's nothing in this applicant's project that is conditioned upon the building of that?
No, I don't believe
That's not
there
even
is.
part of the
I don't believe they're
application.
addressing that because it's been set up as a right turn in, a right turn out. Now, I know there've been comments made about the possibility of people not obeying that and making the transition over to the other side and through that intersection. And that actually can be remedied by just putting up a barrier so that they can't cross over. And at one time I thought the state was going to do that, but it wasn't done.
So we would need, because of the, there's going to be some kind of redirection of traffic during construction, that may be an important thing for the state to do for safety measures during the rerouting of the traffic.
Actually, the detour during construction completely does that intersection, and there are construction detour plans that show a treatment that allows that intersection to work fully.
Thank you, Ms. Egoff. Mr. Yoshimoto?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, so, Mr. Thiel, just to follow up on your last point, so there's modifications that can be made at the Kahakai intersection where it's a right turn, right out and right in. That can be done relatively quickly then.
Well, it's state.
Okay, but it's the state.
So let me back up a little bit. When that intersection was being proposed, there was some safety designs going on, and I was working with the state very closely on it, and we agreed to put up raised curb to stop the flow of traffic throughout that whole, to restrict the flow of traffic through that whole intersection. Somewhere along the design, the state said, no, we're not going to put any raised curbs, and so they deleted everything. And I found out about it, and I said, I need the raised curbs, so at least put the raised curbs on the county portion of that intersection, because like a third of that intersection is county, 2/3 is the state. So they agreed to put the raised curbs back on the county portion, but not the other portion.
Because, and just so for clarification, then, so that raised curb, those would be physical barriers that would make it very difficult to have the traffic that Ms. Hunt had talked about.
That is correct.
Okay.
And they can either be put back as raised curbs or as delineated.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yoshimoto. Any other discussion? Ms. Io?
Are you planning to call the applicant forward too?
Absolutely. If it will, pretty much depending if they want to, one, if they want to respond, or two, if there's any questions from council members to the applicant.
Well, I guess unless there's any other questions for Mr. Theo.
Ms. Ford, a question for Mr. Thiel?
Thank you, but did Mr. Iligan want to talk? Because I've already had one. Let him go first.
Okay, and I also will remind you that we are carrying over from our last meeting, so there was already previous rounds that we had, and we're on our second. I'm not counting the simple questions as a round, so pretty much most people are on their second round. Mr. Iligan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to add additional information. I was looking at the DOT website, and according to December 31st, 2012, the project is the State Department of Transportation would like to invite the community to a public informational meeting regarding the intersection improvements at the Pahoa Road. And this project also includes, it says that the intent of the project is to improve safety and traffic flow by converting the existing T intersection into a single-lane modern roundabout. The project also includes slope reinforcement, landscaping improvements, electrical conduits, street lights, and drainage improvements, along with ADA compliant curb ramps and sidewalks, fencing, guardrail, signage, and striping. Construction work time is estimated at approximately 12 months. And I just want to mention that the state is working on this, and I believe our state representative and our state senator is working on this issue. They want to make sure that this project doesn't compound to the problem with any traffic flow. And it is a separate issue when it comes to the project itself and this roundabout. We do need to have a separate discussion with this regarding the state and follow up with that. But with Bryson Cinder's project, they are doing us a favor, doing the state a favor by adding that street light. And the state don't need to pay for that street light. They're helping out the state on helping with the problem. And I just want to mention that with the roundabout issue, we do need to discuss with the state, just like Tiffany Edwards Hunt mentioned. And we need to take that issue separate from this Bryson Cinders, because I feel like we don't have that control. We need to bring in our state representative and our state senator here and voice our opinions that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Logan. Ms. Willie, you have not spoke yet this morning, correct? You asked a question. So, Ms. Willie, you have the floor.
Ron, what is the level of service at those 3 locations currently? Is it like inadequate, D, E, F?
I don't know the actual number. I just know that a lot of people complain about the
It's
entire
right.
area.
And I think in the book, I can't remember what each one is, but it's, so, and there's anticipated.
Oh, I can tell you that at this moment, at the existing traffic at the intersection where the signal is proposed, does warrant a signal at that intersection. I can tell you that.
Let me just say, on the signal and talking about, if we had the impact fees proposal in place, if that had been when it's been proposed, then there would be a nexus between putting in additional development and being required to put in additional infrastructure requirements. But since we don't have that, where it's left to the state to be obligated to do it. But it doesn't mean there's not a nexus between adding a development and the need for additional, whether it's putting in the light or otherwise. I just have trouble. We already have congestion. It's already dangerous. And we're saying, let's go ahead and leave it to when the state eventually may or may not put in a temporary or later the other, adding the infrastructure afterwards. There's an example in Hamakua of where on the Hamakua Homestead Road where the state was committed or were putting in this money, encouraging people to buy there, encouraging people to develop it. They're doing that, then the money goes in and then it lapses and goes away. There's just no certainty. If there was someone here from the state saying, this is in place, here it is, this is all taken care of, I would feel better, but that's not the way it works. I mean, the same thing, I keep going back to Waimea. All of these promises, and they're just not done, then the approval's in place, and then you're fighting where the approval's done and the development's going done, and more people are injured and hurt. So I am very supportive of the development, and but I just can't do it where we're saying go ahead and leave the infrastructure to when and if the state or somebody else decides they're putting it in. So that's my concern. And just from experience in other places, and nothing negative against this development or this development.
Thank you, Ms. Willie. And before I go on, is there any objection to me speaking on this prior to the last, prior to closing? Ms. Yop, you have a question? Or I'm going to let Ms. Yop ask a question to Mr. Thiel, and then Ms. Poindexter, and I'm going to say something. Thank you.
Mr. Thiel, all of us are concerned about adding to the traffic problem in this area. I'm looking at condition I and condition N. So condition I, the applicant shall install the traffic signal at Pahoa and Pahoa Village Road prior to issuance of certificate of occupancy. In condition N, it's only required funding for the roundabout be released by the state for a certificate of occupancy to be issued. If we were to change condition N to require that the certificate of occupancy shall only be issued after the roundabout is actually completed by the state, do you think that with those two conditions we will have a safer traffic pattern in this area, that we would be feeling okay about approving this development to move forward if those two things were concurrent with occupancy?
So
It would mean changing condition N slightly.
I'm not sure you have to change condition N. Isn't there something in there that talks about the traffic mitigation be completed before the occupancy is allowed?
Well, condition N states that a certificate of occupancy shall not be issued for the proposed development until funding for construction of the DOT's intersection improvement project at the Pahoa Bypass, Highway 130/Pahoa Village Road intersection have been released by the state. So it's a timing issue, basically. It's only.
I understand that, but I think some other place in here talks about addressing the traffic mitigation. And I'm not sure where it is, but I remember reading it at one time, and if that's the case, then you're covered already without changing.
It sort of, alludes to it. Condition O, I believe. But it's not a requirement that those two things both be completed prior to certificate of occupancy. The way I read it. I could be wrong. And I think that's why I wanted to bring the applicant forward to see if that is something they could agree to, and then we could at least make that correction to condition N.
Would you like the applicant to come forward to talk to them about that?
Well, if nobody. Okay. Could you please come forward so I could run that by you?
Please turn your microphone on and introduce yourself.
Good morning, John McElvaney.
Thank you. So, well, you've heard everything that's been stated and all of the concerns, and that the council members also share. For the most part, we want to see some mitigation that is satisfactory and certain.
Okay. Well, I'm in total agreement that, and the number one concern of ours has always been the traffic situation. Going all the way back to Woodland Center and Joy Yamada, I worked really closely with him on right turn in and right turn out. In every case, you know, the DOT sometimes gets a bad rap because they do study these situations and they study the intersections. And just to backtrack a little bit, that detour is going to be totally redesigned by the state. So the issue of turning right or turning left on the bypass is going to be totally taken care of. They're going to design it so the detour works. Their main concern was a traffic light, Gregor is correct, and we offered to help them out with that, to try and get that traffic light in prior to their beginning of the detour or construction. So that's how that developed. Prior to that, prior to the roundabout, we studied all of the intersections, the traffic impact analysis report. And I think one of the questions was, what was the level of service at that time? And the level of service going out on northward bound, where they're going to put the roundabout right now, presently is an F. F. Today it's an F. The Malama, coming out of Malama, is an E right now. So knowing this, well, that's part of the reason, talking to the state, that we put a signal light in, because what happens when you put a signal light in, then there's a gap in the traffic. There's a gap in the traffic going north and going south. So that turns that F into a C, and the other Malama market into a C. Now that's without the roundabout going in. So the roundabout, because we were planning to mitigate that intersection by the stoplight, then they added the roundabout, which makes it even better. It turns it into a B, both intersections into a B. And what I envision is the roundabout and the signal light will be working as a hub, and the traffic will move very beautifully through this whole process. As far as whether it's being constructed on time or not, they're very close. They're 90% through with their design. They're almost ready to go to bid, as far as I know. And we have no problem with allowing, we will not accept occupancy until the roundabout is complete and the signal light is in and all the traffic is running smoothly. If we need to change any wordage for that, I think it's a good idea. We won't oppose that. So we can make it very clear for everyone.
Yeah, I think I would like to see condition N be slightly reconstructed, but it doesn't require much. It would just then read, a certificate of occupancy shall not be issued for the proposed development until construction of the Department of Transportation's intersection improvement project at the Pahoa Bypass, Highway 130, Pahoa Village Road intersection have been completed. So we would just delete the release by the state and the funding for, and then it would require completion.
I'm a little bit one step ahead of you, because I anticipated that language, because in the last meeting I said that we wouldn't obtain occupancy till it was built, but the wording is until the funds are released. And that's a concurrency wording. That's because in a development like this, a project, somebody has to mitigate the problems that exist. And usually it's done concurrently between the state and the developer. So that's why it reads the way it does, till the funds are But I have no problem with adjusting that language as long as, I talked to the county about it. They said they can't change that language, but that the county council can.
Order, how would you vote?
Okay, do we make a motion? Can we make
I don't
a
have it in writing. I don't have it in writing at this time.
Can-
Suspend the rules and do it verbally.
Right, we're just
Move
changing-
this forward.
It is just basically changing one, slashing out one line and changing basically one word. Mr. Yoshimoto, do you see any problem with that
As long as it's clear to the council what we're doing, so there's no ambiguity, I think we can do that. But we should memorialize it and write it later.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we have that option that we can do that now. We also have the option that we could be, that could be drafted. We could move this forward to council with the expectation that that amendment would be coming up to council, and it could be amended at council. So that's a way to, we can do it either way.
To me, it might be cleaner if we were to bring the amendment forward in writing the next time we discuss the bill, so we can
That would
vote on it.
That would be
Amendment.
my, I think that would be cleanest as well.
Okay, and I would be willing to do that.
Ms. Ford, do you have a question on this
No,
semi-point of order?
Yeah, it's semi. I agree with Ms. Eoff. And I also think that it's necessary that if we're in a recess, the public can't testify towards this particular change. So it would really be good if we did it in writing, even though I'm the one suggested suspending the rules. I really think it'd be better if we do it in writing so the public has a chance to testify.
Ms. Poindexter?
Yeah, and I think when the public testified, it was real clear that there was the concern of not having this in writing. So I'd like to see this move out of committee onto the council with this amendment. So I don't know if...
You want to see it move from committee to council with the amendment already in place, or you want to see it move?
At the council
with
level.
the expectation that the amendment is coming?
That will be.
Okay. Ms. Willie?
I'm good with that, but I would appreciate it, Karen, if you could get it done so that it would be actually come out on the agenda and the public could then see it. So it has to be whatever 7-8 days ahead.
That's not a problem.
And that it's actually on the agenda. I would also be comfortable if we could table this if we have other stuff here to do, writing it out right now. But I'm all right to see some heads shaking. So I'm good with how you're planning to do it. I just ask that, Karen, if you don't mind doing it as prompt, whatever the date is, so that it gets out there and the public can see that it is on the agenda.
Will do.
Mr. Kanuha?
I feel the same way about this, but I mean, I don't know if we want to, are we still on the same subject? I mean, I definitely wanted to hear from the planning department about this possible amendment that we're trying to.
Please turn your microphone on.
The planning department told me that it's up to you, the council, to rewrite it.
Can I hear from the planning department?
Please have a representative from the planning department, please go forward.
Is that okay if we were?
That's fine. I think this is in discussion how we're going to do this. It looks like the developer's consultant is in favor of that, so it's more so just what's the best way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's something we brought up earlier, and I'm in complete agreement that we can do this, and I feel it's the most appropriate way, but I just wanted to hear from the planning department.
Mr. Ryan, please introduce yourself. Maybe.
Good morning. My name is Darren Rai. I'm a program manager with the planning department.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. You heard the discussion about amending section N of this. Any comments?
What you have before you as far as the draft bill was crafted by the Woodward Planning Commission, and it was done so to simply meet the concurrency requirements that's in the current code. What has been discussed this morning is something beyond the requirements, the concurrency requirements in the zoning code. With that being said, it's solely at the discretion of the council. So At this point, I don't think I have anything more to say.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I think we've all heard from each other exactly what we think is necessary by moving this out of committee and moving this forward. I mean, for myself, I'm in favor of this proposed development. I think it's a good thing to have in this particular area, but we have an issue with the traffic and whether the state's going to, when the state is potentially going to finish this roundabout or not, or that the timing of it. So I think for myself, it's necessary to put it inside as the amendment. I don't want to go into the amendment, but I mean for the next council meeting to have this as the necessary, have the amendment necessary inside this. So I'll yield to this thing.
Could I
Yeah,
offer
sure.
one suggestion though? If you do move forward with the amendment as suggested, I would recommend that you preface the condition by saying as agreed to by the applicant. The applicant went on record saying he agrees to it, and again, the conditions that the Planning Commission offered was structured around the minimum requirements of the concurrency requirements. So if it's something beyond, then I think it's good to spell it out, but I'll leave it to your discretion.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. And if there's no objection, I'm going to take the floor just for a minute. I support this project. The traffic issues in this area are bad. That's definitely an issue. I think it's important to consider condition I, that this is going to be really big to help with the state, and is probably going to get the state to do this that much faster because it's that much less money, and it actually just makes sense because it's not a do-over. At some point, the state would have to have some type of traffic controlling device at that intersection. It makes sense that since that has to be there as a condition anyways, that the developer is going to do that, and it basically, instead of having to do it twice, you just do it once and do it right the first time. I think that's very important. I don't see a problem. I don't have a problem with changing condition N as we had talked about, and the applicant is in favor of that. What I would like to see, though, is the language potentially that it be a roundabout or a traffic light, that just that intersection is taken care of, because I don't want to see them change their mind at the last minute and do something. Right, reminds me of a time on the Planning Commission when there was a special use permit application, and it was an area where there was other commercial activities. To me, it made sense to have it in that area, clustering those, develop that commercial activity in that area. One of the conditions on there was that the intersection on the state highway was improved. And actually, I think it was signalized. And so the applicant was okay with that, and all the buzz on the street at that time was the intersection's going to be done within a year or two, or 2 years at the most, 2 years at the most. Well, they came in and they made minor improvements. They did they extended the turn lane, the shoulder lane a little bit, but it didn't actually meet that criteria. And so it's challenging when you give somebody approval and then the state doesn't do anything. Here, as the county, we can have the applicant comply with everything that they need to do on the county level. It's so challenging. So I think if we can get our state representatives on board, continue to push the state DOT, this could be done, and it can be done, hopefully in a time frame that works, because obviously the services are needed in the area, big time. The jobs are needed in the area. The traffic mitigation is needed in the area. So it's all needed. It's just about trying to do it in the right way. And it looks, to me, it seems as the developer's in agreement with that. Last thing we want to do is cause any more accidents. So when you're doing your amendment, Ms. Eoff, I think it should just be done very simple, but if they decide to go with a roundabout or a traffic light, that's fine, and that the applicant agree with it.
Right now, it just says intersection improvement project.
Okay.
Doesn't specify.
And that's fine. If that's going to read, that's fine. It's going to read that way, as long as that intersection is approved. And with that, yeah, I think it's a great project. So I will yield, Ms. Ford.
Thank you. I appreciate hearing your position on this, because you and Gregor share this road in your districts. And I do have a comment to make. I would personally not like to see, as agreed by the applicant, in this code. It's in the minutes. We know they've agreed to it. We don't need to have it in here. And I think that it might lend itself to setting a precedent in the future that the applicant has to agree, or we can't make the changes. We, the council, make the changes. I think it's wonderful that the applicant is agreeing to this. We all know it's necessary. But I would like this clean, real clean, with no precedent-setting language in it. The other thing is, I'm going to ask Mr. Arai this question, maybe Mr. Rahante too. And the section of I that has to do with the second sentence, it says, prior to the issuance of the certificate of occupancy for any portion of the proposed development, and then it goes on and explains about meeting the crosswalks and turning lanes and the TIR and the proposed roadway improvements, yeah. Is there anything in that section that would be in conflict with in as we're proposing to amend it? Is there any kind of a conflict that would say, well, we only have to do what's in I, we don't have to do what's in N? That's what I'm worried about.
Taking a look at the condition I and condition N, I don't expect there to be a conflict if condition N is amended. Condition I is speaking to the traffic signal installation and crosswalk and turning movements at the Kahakai Pahoa Village Road intersection, was condition N is speaking more to a separate improvement, the roundabout
area.
Right. So
okay,
I don't.
There should be no conflict. These are two separate intersections, so there should be no conflict.
Right.
And the requirements
would you identify yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry. Deputy Corporation Counsel William Berhunti. The requirements in I have to be satisfied prior to the issuance of the building permit, whereas the conditions in N would, or the discussion regarding the condition in N would trigger at the prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. So those are two significant points in time in which the requirements would have to be met. One is with the building permit stage.
Okay, I is the building permit, but the second sentence starts out, prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. That's what's got me concerned. Are those two certificates in conflict with each other? It's nice to have a building permit, but this is saying issuance of a certificate of occupancy.
And that would go to Mr. Arai's discussion, in that we're discussing two separate intersections, two separate areas.
And the shopping center, any building in the new shopping center be given a certificate of occupancy based on I, even though N says no certificate of occupancy until you get the roundabout intersection. Maybe not a roundabout, but the roundabout intersection built.
In my opinion, each condition is disjunctive of each other. So condition A needs to be met separately, B, C, D, E, all the way through. So condition I would have to be met separately, condition N would have to be met separately.
Okay, I guess I'm being a little slow here, so I gotta try this again. It's saying certificate of occupancy. It seems to me you have to do I, no doubt about that. But then if N is not completed, I doesn't happen. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
If I is not completed, we can't issue the certificate of occupancy.
I agree.
If N is not completed, we can't issue the certificate.
Still can't issue.
Correct. It's pursuant to the way it's currently reading.
Yes, thank you. That's all I need to hear.
Yeah, because I mean, in condition I, basically, the traffic signal has to be in there prior to the building permit. Doesn't mean all of the turn lanes, sidewalks, and everything else. So that's going to help the traffic mitigation on the immediate, right? And then the certificate of occupancy can be issued until all of the rest of the infrastructure improvements are complete. And I would, as Mr. Berhunti said, they voted. Both of them would have to be done.
Okay, that's what I want on the record. Both I have to be completed and N has to be completed before a certificate of occupancy shall be granted.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Just to, maybe to help phrase this, structure this discussion even better, is that the reason we phased out the improvements, building permit for the traffic signal, and the rest is associated with certificate of occupancy, is because we knew that the installation of the traffic signal would help facilitate the construction of the roundabout and the management of traffic to Pahoa Village, which is why we separated out only the traffic signal. It says before you even get a building permit, put in the traffic signal, because we knew it would help with the roundabout improvements. So that's the only difference that I see between the two conditions.
And just as a final comment, the reason I really wanted to get this into the record is because of the concerns of the community saying we need both of these things taken care of before a certificate of occupancy. And as long as that's the understanding of all the council members and Corporation Council and Planning Department and DPW too, I has to be completed, in has to be completed, or no occupancy of this. If that is the understanding, and it is right now, let's go forward.
Ms. Young?
Just one more question for Mr. Arai. In condition I, it does start with as agreed to by the applicant. So I'm just wondering, Ms. Ford said that it may set a bad precedent to start condition N with those words, but because I'm wondering if that was added there because that didn't come in public discussion. That was something prior agreed to for your initial conditions.
As I mentioned, a lot of what's presented in the conditions are things that tries to address or mitigate due to the concurrency requirements in the code. When there are certain accommodations that we believe goes beyond just simply meeting the minimum concurrency requirements, we try to put it in so it clearly identifies that the applicant has agreed to provide these improvements or phasing of improvements that go beyond the requirement, the minimum requirements.
May I add the caveat? It's just a way to additionally protect the county to possible exposure to liability. You know, we don't want to challenge down the road where we have a nexus type challenge where we're looking at, you know, unfair exactions on the applicant. So here the applicant has stated he's willing to agree. I think the language is clear in condition I, as agreed to by the applicant. You know, pursuant, if there's going to be an amendment and we're going to require additional or stricter requirement under condition N, I think in order to protect potential exposure to the county, a simple phrase of as agreed to by the applicant protects us all the way through the process. And we can't, you know, it just, at the, you know, 5 years from now, when we're sitting here and, you know, if the state never builds the roundabout and applicants we're ready to go with this project, listen, look, you agreed to it on this condition. That's the only condition that's still outstanding. And I think it just gives us additional protections.
Thank you. Ms. Poindexter?
Yeah, I agree with that. If it's in the ordinance, you know, versus just in the minutes, I totally agree that that should be in there, because I don't think it sets a precedent. I think that if it's not in there, then it can be challenged. You know, I didn't say that, although you got to bring up the minutes and all that kind of stuff, and you got to go through that. So I think it's cleaner if it's in the ordinance. That's my opinion. I agree with Corp Counsel.
Ms. Ford, and then we're going to close out discussion.
Thank you. I am not going to hold this up for that language. I don't agree with the language, and if they went to court, if Corporation Counsel went to court, they would pull the minutes because that's the proof. They'd pull the DVD. It's all in the minutes. I'm not going to hold this up for that language, but I really don't like it.
Ms. Willie?
Yeah, I just say I don't have a problem with having that language in there.
And we're going to get another chance to discuss that when the actual
Yeah.
amendment comes out, and that'd be probably the most appropriate time to
I think
get into that.
If there was some ambiguity about it, then it might be another question. But here it's clear, it's, and we're just trying to avoid any potential, I don't know, backlash or opposition where it's really a challenge that isn't deserved, and even if in court you could get out such and such documents. Let's just put it in and be clear.
Thank you very much. So now on this, we will take the vote for Bill 119. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? have 8 in favor and 1 excused. Bill 19 will move forward to council with a positive recommendation. May I have a motion